What is happening, everybody? We're here for another HTML tutorial, and this one today, this is pretty cool. So this is called Grid. We've learned how to do tables and we've used floats and things like that for positioning different elements of our page. And Grid is a way that's a little bit easier to use and is fun to play around with. So let's get started. We'll go ahead and create a new folder in our Web1 folder, and we'll call this Grid. And then we'll make a HTML file using the same skeleton as before, and then we can go File, Save As, and then find our Grid folder and select Hypertext Markup Language and index.html, and there we go. And we have the doc type, the head section. I did go ahead and change the title to Grid, and we still have our UTF-8. For the description in here, I just using the grid for our web design, something simple. And I did put in here a link for our styles.css that we'll be using for this, and we'll get this thing rolling. Now this one here, you can apply this in a lot of different ways, but I think it's most fun when you use it as a way to just kind of design your web page. So we'll start off using a div. So we'll go div class equals quotation marks, and we'll call this one grid hyphen container. And then down here just above the body, we'll close out that div. So everything we create on this is going to essentially be found inside this big grid container. The next thing that we'll do, so this is very kind of anti-semantic, I would say, because of all the divs. This one here will go div class equals quotation marks, and then we'll call this one item 1. In item 1, and it'll make sense to you why we're calling it this a little bit later, but each one we want to give a specific name, and it's going to be a container to hold things in it. So then here I will close this div, and then in here I think what we could use for item 1, because ultimately we are going to have 4 different items that we're going to be creating for this. And so the first one is just going to be our top one. So we'll go ahead and we'll put a H1 in here for this. And then in here we'll put in something like this is the header. All right, now if we wanted to, we could use semantics, and I could put header and H1 inside of the div of the item 1. You can customize it however you want to. This here, what I'm giving you, is just kind of the bare bones minimum amount, so that way you can have all the freedom to make unlimited possibilities for it. Alright, so that's the first one that we have on there. Then the next one we have, we'll put another div here. And this div, we will give a class of item 2. And this one, I think, is something that in my mind I kind of want to have this as like a sidebar type of thing. And it really helps when you kind of diagram this out first, but like I said, you'll understand why we did this the way we did it once you see how it works. So in here I'll put in a H2, and then we'll type in menu for this, and we'll go with a UL. Can be whatever you want, but this will probably work nicest. And then we'll put in a LI in here, and then link 1, and then we'll close the LI. And if we copy this here and paste this and put 4 or 5 links in there, that should work. And then we can just number these off as we go down. Just placeholders for right now. Alright, that is our second one that's in there. So then the next one that we have, anybody want to take a guess what it's going to be called? Item 3, you got it. Item 3. And then I'll close it down here. And we'll put a H2 in here. And in this H2, we'll type in heading. And then underneath that, we'll go ahead and put in like a paragraph. So this would be kind of like where we might put our section in our articles or our main or anything like that. We'll type in some text to go with the heading. Alright, now we'll copy this and paste that in like 3 times. And then our final one that we'll do is we'll go down here, div class equals quotation marks item 4, and this is going to be like our header, or I mean our footer, the opposite of header. And we'll just put a paragraph in here. And we can say page created by us, and copy semicolon. There we go. So this is our basic structure of this particular page, and I can kind of tidy that up a little bit. I'm going to click save, and if I go here to my web page on this and I double click on it, we can see this is what the page looks like with this. Nothing very special with it right now, but then once we get to our CSS document, this is where it starts to get really cool. Alright, so at the top of this, I do need to save this, otherwise it's not going to work. So file, save as, and find my grid folder, and then click the drop down menu and find Cascade Style Sheet, styles.css, and save. I just want to make sure I called it styles and not style. Alright, there we go. And we'll start with our universal styling that we've done a few times. So our star up there, we'll go padding 0, margin 0, and border 0 to get us started with that. Okay, then after that, we're going to like give our divs that we used with the classes of item 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to give them an actual name that we can use in this code. So dot item 1, we'll just list them out first. Dot item 2, dot item 3, dot item 4, because we used 4 of them. And you can use as many of them as you want. This can be as big or as small as you want. Okay, then I'm going to put my fancy brackets after item 1, and I will use the command grid hyphen area and then a colon. And my grid area 1, if I look back at this here, this was the area that I kind of wanted to be the header, and I typed this is the header in there. So I will call this header in semicolon. All right, and then item 2 was what I want to be my left nav menu. So for this one, I will go grid hyphen area is menu. And then I'll use my fancy brackets down here for this one. For item 3, grid hyphen area colon. This is going to be, like I said before, like my section or articles or main. So I'll use main here. Don't forget your semicolon there, son of a gun. And then I'll put my angle brackets here, or my fancy brackets here, and grid area footer for this one. Alright, so these are defined out now. So it still doesn't do anything to our page really. I mean, taking out the padding, margin, and border does, but everything else looks essentially the same. But then we can go down here to grid hyphen container, and we'll put our fancy brackets in here, and we're going to go display colon grid semicolon. So that's going to tell us we want to use all of these things in this CSS grid library, or whatever you wish to call it. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go grid hyphen template hyphen areas. Grid hyphen template hyphen areas. And then I'll put a colon there, and then I press enter, and then I'm going to use single brackets in here. And so if I think about like how wide I want this thing to be, I'm going to say I want the header to be like 5 or maybe 6 units wide. Okay, so then what I can do here is I could type in header, 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 header. And that's going to divide my page 6 segments wide, even segments wide. And then in the next line, I can put my brackets up underneath here. And I wanted my menu to be on the left-hand side, like a sidebar kind of thing. So I'm going to type in menu, and then I want the rest of it to be my main section. So that means my main has to be 5 sections wide. So I'll go main, 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 main. So on this one, because it has to be the same units wide each time. This one's 6, but the left one is menu. Then the next ones are going to be for the main. Okay, then down here, I'm going to go with my single quotation marks again, and here I'll type in footer, 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 footer. So then the footer will go all the way across. All right, if I had an item 5, for instance, and I defined that as like right bar or something, or as a main or a menu or something for that, or named it something different, then I could have had it over here instead of, I could have gone header, 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 and whatever I wanted to call this one, and then I would replace this main with it, and I'd replace this footer, and then I would have something on the right side that goes all the way from the top to the bottom. Or here, if I wanted this menu on the left hand side to go all the way up and down, I would just replace this header with menu and this footer with menu. Okay, so we have that layout done. There's a few other things we'll do with this, and I'll put in here gap 10px, so that gives us some space around the outside of that. I also need to put a semicolon after the footer up here. That's pretty key. Okay, so gap is 10px. I'll go background hyphen color is going to be #1111111. And let's see, I might put in just a little bit of padding that's going to go around the elements in there. So I can go padding 10px. Then here we'll go dot grid hyphen container and greater than, and then div. And I want to be able to see the text that is in there. So we'll go to background hyphen color, and for that we'll go $DDD semicolon, and then we'll go padding of 5px. Alright, so this should be good. If I go up to run and I launch this in Chrome, if I go to my page and refresh this up, then we see this is our grid and this is how it looks. It's pretty awesome. So a few things here just to kind of show you how this works a little further. Each of these elements in here I can then treat differently, and if I use my semantic HTMLs or whatever I put in there, I can further style those out. So let's say I want like the header and the bottom part, the footer, to be centered. Then what I can do here is I could go dot item 1 and a comma, or no, yeah, comma, and then dot item 4, and then in here I will use text hyphen align center. And if I refresh that, those then are centered in there. Also, there's some things you can do with the height of this also when you play around with this. So if we go here, maybe underneath grid container, and in our menu, for example, that's one thing that can extend for the height. So I could go dot item 2 and then I can go height 100 VH semicolon, and if I refresh this, then I have my page that extends, you know, to the size of the page. So these can be as far away as you want. You know, if you want each one to be a different size, if you wanted to just have the top one and have a bunch of squares and use it as like a gallery or something for a portfolio, you could use that for it also. Pretty cool. So it used to be people would use like the table or the chart or whatever to kind of lay out elements of their web page, and I think grid is a whole lot better. There's so many things you can do with it. We could go on that forever, but I'll let you play around with this layout, and then when you have time, do some search and jump down that rabbit hole for the grid elements, and your mind will be blown of the ways that you can use it for your web page design. Pretty fun stuff. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you have any other ideas or ways to apply this, let me know, and we'll get you on the next video.